unmute myself. All right, we'll try again. Welcome, everybody. My name's Jen Andrews, and I have the pleasure of welcoming you all here today on behalf of both the University of New Hampshire and Second Nature to share with you all a preview of the soon-to-be launched new public reporting module in SIMAP. So our plan for the next hour with you all is this. We're going to take a few minutes to review the history and shared goals that have led us to create this new resource for our community. We're going to give you a sneak peek at the tool and how it works. We'll talk about what you can expect in terms of a process for your emissions reporting this spring, whether you already use SIMAP to calculate your emissions or whether you don't use it, you use something else. And we'll share our launch timeline and next steps. And we'll hopefully have some time for Q&A at the end. That's the plan. So for some introductions, on the SIMAP side, you'll be hearing from myself and Dr. Allison Leach. I'm privileged to know many of you already, but for those of you I don't know, I'm a project director at the UNH Sustainability Institute. And in that role, like many of you, I wear a lot of hats. Among them, I coordinate the work to meet our own carbon reduction goals, and I serve as our implementation liaison as part of our participation in the climate commitment. And I also get to direct our SIMAP team. And before coming to UNH, I spent 13 years at a nonprofit called Clean Air, Cool Planet, working to support businesses and communities across New England and especially campuses across the US in tracking and managing their carbon footprints. So that's me, Allie.
Hello, everyone. Very excited to be having this webinar today to share this new functionality with you all. So I'm Allie. I'm a researcher with the UNH Sustainability Institute, where I work on the day-to-day support and research and development for SIMAP. And we also wanted to mention the other core members of our team, the SIMAP team at UNH. They are Ben Robinson. He's our technical program assistant who does all of the emission factor calculations. We'll be releasing some more emission factors next month. Bailey Jones is one of our great undergraduate interns who's leading data reviews and doing some really great calculations on upstream energy emissions. And Megan Wiggin just joined our team last fall. Megan is also working on data reviews and is now working on data collection for UNH's footprint.
Great. Hi, everyone. Steve Muzzy. I'm Senior Manager of Climate Programs at Second Nature. I've been with Second Nature for over 14 years, and my primary role is to support the staff campuses that are charged with organizing and executing the commitments that their institutions have made on climate. And I also manage what was the Second Nature public reporting platform, and we'll now be moving that over to this partnership with SIMAP and the public reporting module. And want to introduce my colleague, Shana.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shana Massajuski, and I'm the Climate Programs Data Manager at Second Nature. I work with Steve on maintaining our reporting platform. I'm currently helping him transfer all the data from our old reporting platform to our current reporting platform. And I also help with creating data visualizations. So thank you all for being here today.
Awesome. Thanks, Shana and Steve and Allie. So earlier this week, I was torn between feeling honored and chagrined to get an invitation to a quote old timers meeting organized by Mark Orlowski, who I think is on this webinar, Executive Director and founder of Sustainable Endowments Institute and GRITS. And he was convening folks like me who've been doing this work of supporting campuses who've made carbon commitments for a while now. And between that event earlier this week and this webinar today, I've been reflecting on how much progress we've made and what a hopeful counterpoint that is to the stark global imperative that we're all facing down daily to have global emissions in less than a decade. Those of you who are maybe also part of that old timers group may remember that in the late 90s, we were mobilizing to get the Kyoto Protocol adopted and ratified, and visionaries from organizations across civil society were asking, how can we lead? How can we demonstrate that greenhouse gas reductions at the levels that are being called for are not only possible, but they're beneficial for organizations as well as for society. And so between 1990 and 2000, you had, of course, organizations like Second Nature, founded in 1993, and programs like ICLEI's Cities for Climate Protection, as well as the launch of the Global Reporting Initiative and Carbon Disclosure Project, they were all beginning to aim at questions like these. And of course, also in the late 90s, the University of New Hampshire Sustainability Institute became one of the first campus sustainability programs in the country. And in 2001, we began working at UNH on a project to take the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change guidelines for countries and adapt them to the university to track its carbon footprint and set a reduction target. Unbeknownst to us then, Julian Deltremont-Smith was doing a similar project as an undergrad at Lewis and Clark out on the West Coast. And of course, in 2001, the greenhouse gas protocol was published, and that was the result, or at least the corporate accounting standard for the greenhouse gas protocol was published. And that was the result of a multinational, multi-stakeholder, multi-sector process. And that published guidelines for doing the same thing amongst corporations. So it was clear everybody's sort of moving in the same direction. And by 2004, there was a group of campuses across New England who'd used that UNH template to pilot a project measuring and reporting their emissions, working with us at Cleaner Cool Planet, using what we were then calling the campus carbon calculator, which was kind of a refined version of that initial template. So many of those campuses use their findings to set reduction targets, and incidentally have become some of the first campuses in the country to meet their neutrality targets. So many of them went on to found the New England Campus Sustainability Consortium, a regional network. While out on the West Coast, EFS West was similarly facilitating collaboration and leadership, and that was a network supported by Second Nature. So those early adopters and many more like them set the stage for concerted national programs. The launch of ASHE, of course, EPA's climate leaders, the climate registry, and in higher ed, the development of what was then the American College and University President's Climate Commitment in 2006 and 2007, in which campuses not only committed to carbon neutrality, but to measuring and reporting. And so that measuring and reporting framework, or those requirements, were developed then based on what we'd already learned and built collaboratively as a sector focused on climate action and carbon reductions. Of course, in 2010, Second Nature launched a reporting platform to support signatories. 2014, that campus carbon calculator reacquired by UNH, and we've been supporting it at UNH ever since. And in 2017, we launched a web-based version of that called SIMAP, which you'll hear more about shortly. The upshot of all of this, in general, we've come a long way. We've worked hard in not only getting good at understanding our carbon footprints and reporting them, but using that data to meet the challenge that we face. And also to do it in network and collaboration with each other. And increasingly to align efforts amongst all these great programs so that we can be effective. At the forefront of all of those efforts has been the Climate Leadership Network, supported by Second Nature. And it's been my very great pleasure to be in continual partnership and collaboration with my friends at Second Nature over the past 15, 20 years, to share a vision in which higher ed is at the forefront of demonstrating that we can meet the climate leadership challenge before us, and to share a commitment to providing tools and resources and supporting that leadership. And that's what we're all about today. So I know all of us in higher ed sustainability are really appreciative of the work of Second Nature. And now it's my pleasure to turn it over to their climate program senior manager, Steve, to also provide further context and welcome.
Well, thank you, Jen. Just want to say the feeling is mutual. Really have valued and appreciated our collaboration over time, and really excited about the expanded partnership that we are embarking on. And I just love the historical context as well that you just shared, and also want to recognize that you, Jen, and UNH has always been a facilitator and convener of the collaboration. You've always brought us all together to help and look at ways to increase ways of working together to support our campuses in this work. So I do want to recognize that and thank you for that. So further climate leadership collaboration, there's a little gap here from Jen's timeline to this timeline, but another thing I do want to state, when the ACU PCC was launched in 2006-07, that was in collaboration with ASHE and another organization called Eco America. And in between that time of launching in 2006-07 to 2015, thousands of greenhouse gas inventories were submitted to the Second Nature public reporting platform. And when we did the rebrand and expansion in 2015, we had an opportunity to reorganize and evaluate the reporting structure. And what we found was over 70% of campuses were submitting annual greenhouse gas inventories, even though the initial structure of reporting only asked for inventories every other year. So that gave us this opportunity to combine the greenhouse gas report and the progress report on the climate action plan, which is now called the annual progress evaluation, which is primarily a greenhouse gas inventory. And that was part of the new policy and expansion in 2015, that you would report your greenhouse gas data annually. So as we moved through, SIMAP was going through this evolution out of carbon map into a web-based tool, and campuses had always been asking for just streamlining the reporting. So we were able to have a technical API where you could share your data, your carbon equivalent outputs from SIMAP to the Second Nature reporting platform. And at the same time, we were working with UNH Sustainability Institute on data analysis. We did this collaborative, I think we did 2 rounds of it, where we collaborated with SIMAP and Fovea at that time and Customer First Renewables to just kind of see what the data was saying, was progress being made in climate action goals, and released a couple of reports on that. We also collaborated on working groups, co-facilitating with UNHSI on commuting, so exploring new methodologies for tracking commuting data. And we also had a group on bioenergy and land use, kind of in tandem with the greenhouse gas protocols addendum to new accounting standards for those areas. And then that, of course, has now moved us to what we're here today for this expanded partnership, where we're actually going to connect and integrate the footprinting module of SIMAP with a public reporting module. And so I want to turn this over to Ali for her to share more information and preview SIMAP footprinting and the public reporting module.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Steve and Jen, for that great overview of the progress over the last 20 years or so here. I am very excited to be sharing this public reporting functionality with you all today. We've been working really hard on this over the last several months, half a year actually, on getting this functionality in here and also getting your feedback on it. So many of the folks on the call right now beta tested this functionality and were a tremendous help in helping us improve it and get it ready for a broader launch. So before we look at the public reporting module, I just want to take a really quick look at what SIMAP has been to date and what SIMAP will continue to have. And so far, SIMAP has been a footprint calculation tool. So it has been a place for colleges, universities, and other organizations to come and enter their data, enter their activity data, and calculate their footprint results. We will continue to support that functionality. That will continue to be a major focus of SIMAP. We're going to continue adding new emission factors every year and adding additional categories in Scope 3. I'll be talking at the end today about some additional categories we'll be adding for commuting, for example, along with our February launch. And the way that SIMAP works very generally is that you enter this activity data and you get out 2 footprints, the carbon footprint and the nitrogen footprint. SIMAP does the calculations for you, keeps the emission factors up to date, uses the most up-to-date methods, and you get these 2 footprint results to give you a broader picture of your environmental impacts to help with sustainability decision-making. And just very briefly, you enter your data into the tool. This is what that interface looks like. And this is something that SIMAP users will continue to do for their calculation. This will be an important step to get your data ready to go over to public reporting. So entering your data either on the data entry tab or on through an import on the data management tab. And then once you've got your data into SIMAP, there's a number of different results views to look at. This is an example on the results tab showing the gross footprint, where it has the total emissions, biogenic offsets for both the carbon and nitrogen footprint. Another view that we see used a lot is the categories view. It helps you really focus in on what sources are driving a big part of your footprint. What might jump out here is that you can see on the nitrogen side, this big pink bar here is the largest contributor for the nitrogen footprint. That's food production from food purchasing. This is a helpful view to see what those major driving sources are. And there's other results views. There's also a reports tab where we essentially package the results by topic. So this particular one is the annual report that gives you a snapshot of everything relevant for a single year of data. Then there's other reports on food, on commuting, on biogenic, and we're going to be continuing to add these reports. We've got a list of quite a few that we'd like to add to this list, and always welcome suggestions as well. So that's what SIMAP has been to date. It's been a footprint calculation tool to assist with your inventory calculations. What we are adding in February and previewing today is the public reporting module in SIMAP. So what we're going to do now is take a quick tour of what that public reporting module looks like on our development site. And we will be releasing this functionality publicly in February. So it's almost ready. We're putting the finishing touches on it and are excited to be sharing it with all of you today. So what you are seeing now, and this will be familiar to our beta testers, is our preview site. So you can see it's got some red text on here and it says at the top preview site, and it looks a little different, like the news feed's a little different, but it's where we test out functionality before we move it over to the live site. And the live site is the one where you all enter your data and calculate your footprints. So I just want to note that everything you'll be seeing in here, it's not yet on the live site, and this is where we're trying it out. And the data that you'll be seeing in here is for demonstration purposes only. So the data that we've got in these accounts is not official data, it's just for testing and demonstration purposes. So this is what, when you're logged into an SIMAP account, these are the tabs that you've seen to date. And what we are adding is this public reporting tab. So this is what will be new and where the public reporting module is going to live on SIMAP. And if you were to click on this green tab, this is what you would see. This is essentially the homepage for the public reporting module. And in addition to this homepage, you can navigate to that by clicking on the tab, and the other tabs, there's really two other pages, an emissions reports page and a commitments page. And you can use these little buttons here to navigate to the different pages. So this homepage is a landing page to give some basic information. It also has links to some of the other pages and has a news feed to show when new records have been published here. This is also where what people will see when they are not logged into a SIMAP account and want to come see what these results look like. They want to see what the state of higher ed sustainability is. So we're working on adding in some visualizations that will show the current state of that data set and to give a sense of what those results are looking like. So the first of what we've added on this page, and you can see the very top of it right here, and we'll zoom in, is a really neat map that was made by Shana at Second Nature, and it shows institution commitments by country, and it's an interactive map. So you'll be able to click on a country to zoom in and see what the institution commitment by type is, for example. So these other graphs will update as you navigate to a specific feature. And I know Shane is putting some finishing touches on this, and that we've also got some other ideas for visualizations to add in the future. If you all have any suggestions, we definitely welcome those. We're excited about the new data visualization potential here with this public reporting module. So after the public reporting homepage, the next page that we have is the emissions reports page. And this is where that public data will really live. So if you want to get into the details of the data set, the emission reports page is where you'll want to go. This might be familiar to those of you that are signatories with Second Nature, because we modeled this after the homepage of their reporting platform, where there's a big table that's going to have summary data for all of the institutions that are reporting and filters on the left side. So you can zoom in on institutions of a particular size, particular enrollment, Carnegie classification. So you can apply any of these filters to focus in on a set of institutions. And then you can also click on any of these links to show more detail about that institution. And I'll show one of those in just a moment, but first, this is our commitments tab, and the commitments tab shows an overview of all of the institutions that have made some kind of formal climate commitment. And so the table will have a list of the Climate Leadership Network commitment, so the carbon commitment, climate commitment, and resilience commitment, and also Race to Zero. So I know that Steve will be talking more about that later. This is another place where you'll be able to see what organizations are doing now, and there's some filters as well to focus in on those. So when you click on an institution's name, when they've got data publicly reported, it'll take you to a page like this. So every institution that is publicly reporting will have their own page that they can add data and additional information to. So this is just an example page for the University of New Hampshire. Again, not real data here, just data for testing. So ignore some of the numbers here, but to show you all the structure of how it works. So at the top, we'll have information on commitments with logos to indicate what those commitments are. Any goals that that institution has entered will be published here, and there's a lot of flexibility in what types of goals you can enter. The tool will also calculate the change in emissions for the years that you've entered. So this will be dynamic. It'll update based on the data that you've entered and show the change by scope 1 and scope 2, scope 3, and your gross and net emissions. We've also got a place here where you can enter text about your institution's goals and sustainability program. So it's basically just an open text field for you to enter what you would like, and also a link to your institution's page for more information. Also wanted to highlight another link that we've made with one of our partners, GRITS, and we've embedded a dashboard that shows GRITS data for organizations that are using GRITS as well. And what you can do is get embed code from your GRITS account, put it into your SIMAP profile, and then this will appear. And there's some options in terms of settings and whatnot, but then this dashboard will then appear on your public reporting page. So we're very excited to have this first dashboard, and we're also going to be adding another one from GRITS as well in the future. Then below this information is where you'll get into the data on that institution's page. So this is then showing some interactive graphs. So you'll see graphs like this on every institution's page. And there's one by the net footprint, gross footprint, scopes, and categories. And you can interact with these. You can change it to a line graph. You can zoom in on particular categories, remove categories. So these are intended to be interactive here, so you can view the data in different ways. And because we like to know what the numbers are behind the graphs, below those graphs, you can also see all of those numbers organized into tables. So totals by scope and by category. So all the data is there as well on that institution's page. So that's what the public reporting piece will look like once your data is in there. So by now I'm thinking that you're wondering, how do you publish your data? How do you get your institution's data into this public reporting module? So I'm going to be talking about that from a perspective for SIMAP users, so folks that are already using SIMAP, how they'll take their data from their calculations in SIMAP and put it into public reporting. And then Steve is going to tell us how folks who are not using SIMAP can enter their data into this public reporting module. So this list here is really the main steps. This is really it, and we'll walk through each of these in a little more detail. SIMAP users will start by entering their data set into SIMAP and finalizing it. So making sure you've got a complete data set in there that you're happy about. An important step is marking a year as complete, indicating in SIMAP that that year is complete, and that'll make it available for import to public reporting. Then you will import your data to public reporting and check a box to indicate that it's published. And we set it up this way with these additional steps for importing and publishing so that you have some control over when your data will go over to the public reporting module. We know that many of you use SIMAP throughout over the course of several months, up to a year even in some cases, as you're collecting data. It can take time to get it from different departments, of course, and that you've got draft results in your account. And so this setup, this design is so that you can continue to use SIMAP in that way. And then when you're done, when your data set is ready to go, you can indicate that you want to move it over to public reporting. Then I'll also show in just a moment how all users can publish information about their goals on the public reporting module. So that background information that I showed on an institution report. Okay, so once you've got your data in SIMAP and all your data is entered, happy with your results, then what you'll do is come over to the data management tab and click on the status page and check a box to indicate that the year is complete. And what that does is it tells the public reporting module that that year is available for import into the public reporting module. So next you'll come over to the account tab. And we've got this new public reporting submenu. So these are the two pages that have information relevant to public reporting. And right now we're on the emissions reports page on the account tab. And you can see here a summary of the records that I have already entered into this account. And it'll give you the name of the individual who entered that record, the year for that record. So there's one per year. And when it was last modified. So this can let you know if you've made updates, if you maybe have made updates in your SIMAP account and want to update it, you can compare to these dates so you know if you need to update in public reporting. So what you do when you want to import your SIMAP results to public reporting is you click this button right here, import SIMAP results, and that'll take you to this page. And you'll click this drop down here, and in the drop down, the years that are marked as complete that you have not yet imported will be visible. So in this case, the only year that I had marked as complete but had not yet imported was 2020. So that's the only year that I'm seeing right here. If you're not seeing a year yet, then you'll want to go back to that data management tab and the status page to make sure that box is checked. So once you've selected your year, click import, and then a new record is going to pop up at the top of this table. And the default is that these are not published when you import it. And that's so that you can go to this record, you can click the edit button to see all the details for it and make sure that you're happy with how it all looks. And then you can click publish. So there's a checkbox right here. So, this is a feature that we added based on feedback from our beta testers. So thank you again to those beta testers. So check that box, select to publish that data, and then it will go over to public reporting. The last piece for entering your data is there's some more information you can enter on the goals page under the account tab. And the goals page is where you enter information about your goals, but also where you can enter other information you want to share on your institution's public reporting page. So an important piece here is that there's also a checkbox for this. The default is that these will not be checked. So you'll want to go in, make sure that you're happy with how everything looks, and go in and check this box to indicate that you're ready for this information to be on the public reporting page. Then everything that is on this page, if you've entered everything, will then be visible on your institution report page. So you've got information about your carbon neutrality goal, any specific goals. There's lots of drop downs here, so you can indicate what a specific goal is for. So here's an example for scope 1 and scope 2, a goal just for food, and you can enter the goal year and the base year for each one. So you can see these can vary, they can all be different and very customizable. Then here's that text box where you can enter text for display on your page, a place to put a URL to link to an external page that has more information about your sustainability program. And this is where you can embed that code from, if you're a GRITS user, from your GRITS account to have a dashboard appear on your institution's page. So once you have published your results, you'll see that your institution will appear on the news feed here, and it'll indicate what year you published a record for. So if you publish a few in a row, you might have a few records here. And once you've published your results, we just encourage you to take a look at your institution's page just to make sure that everything appeared as you expected it to and that it all looks good. So at this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Steve, who's going to tell us how non-SIMAP users can enter their data into the public reporting module. So Steve, over to you.
All right, thanks, Allie. Let's head to the next slide, please. Okay, so for those of you that have not subscribed to SIMAP, are not familiar with SIMAP, this is how we are preparing you to be able to report to the public reporting module. So Shana and I are working with UNH's computer programmer, Aaron Dame, on migrating your greenhouse gas data and reduction goals data from the Second Nature reporting platform and sending it over to the SIMAP database to be in draft. So at the same time, we're creating accounts for all, at this point, just the implementation liaisons, and we will then email you directly with instructions for logging into the new reporting module. So what we're asking you to do for this reporting period is to log in to the new reporting module. We want you to review the data that's been transferred over from the Second Nature reporting platform, as well as its goals. We want you to review it, confirm it, and move it to the public reporting module. That's the baseline. That's what we're looking for this reporting period. But then, of course, you may be working on your most recent GHG data. And so you can then manually add that as well and report it publicly. So what does that look like? Next slide, please. So the interface is going to be very similar. It's stripped down and streamlined, and you're not seeing the functionality and the menu options on the top tab or on the side tab that is available for the footprinting module. So you'll first come to the account tab, and then you'll look at your goals. And again, the default will be nothing will be checked here. You'll review it and then check it. And also just want to give another shout out to here's where GRIT's goals. If you're a GRIT's user, you can add and embed your GRIT's visualization here. So that would be number one. Once you're logged in, check your goals. Next slide. And as Ali was showing, this is this would be pre-populated for you. So none of this would be published. I know the column saying it's all yes, these would be all no. And so this should be all your inventory data that you have in the Second Nature reporting platform will now be here in draft, and we'd like you to review it. The pro tip here would be you can go in individually to each of the inventories and review the data, or you could do the bulk operation where you would select them all and then publish publicly. Next slide. By doing this, you can see everything in one place. And this seems kind of like a subtle change, but this is what a Second Nature reporting platform, these were in different areas. You could never see it all together. And there's a whole lot more data that's below as you scroll down, depending on how many inventories you have. But it's the visualization and graph form of your data. It's all the tables of your data. It's by source, it's by scope, it's extensive. So this would be the best place to review your data. Then of course, if you see a discrepancy and you want to make a clarification, next slide, you go back to this account tab under public reporting, emissions reports, and you have the control to move your reports back to draft. So you could just take them completely down, and then you can work in them individually to make any of the necessary changes to report publicly. Okay, next slide. So, being a little bit redundant here from some of Ali's slides, but also want to talk about this commitments tab in the public reporting module. And of course, the climate leadership commitments are listed, but another program signatories may be familiar with, but it's through the United Nations Environment Program. It's called Race to Zero. It's a global cross-sector campaign to just accelerate action and decarbonization to net zero. We, Second Nature, we're partnering with a group out of the UK, and we are focused on the out in colleges and universities, so the higher ed sector globally. And very similar to our climate leadership commitments, it's a public commitment to eliminating operational greenhouse gas emissions. It's committing to making a plan and committing to report your progress publicly. So a lot of signatories qualify for the Race to Zero program. So that's where you would see that you're both a carbon or climate commitment signatory and a Race to Zero participant. And this page also corresponds quite a bit to the map visualization on the public reporting home tab. Next slide. I think that's it. Turning it back over to Allie.
Thanks, Steve. And one point I wanted to add for that commitments page is that we will be populating all the commitment information. So we know, of course, what commitments you all have signed on to. We have that information and we'll be loading that into your account. So you won't need to be entering that yourself. We've got that in the system. So now thinking about timeline, looking forward and when you all can expect to see this functionality in SIMAP. So in early February, which is coming up very soon here, we're going to be launching public reporting for signatories. So this first launch will be just for signatories, and will then in spring or summer be launching public reporting for all other users. So for those of you that are not Second Nature signatories, if you're interested in publicly reporting your own data, stay tuned. There's going to be an option for that, and we'll have more information on that very soon. As I mentioned, we're also going to be adding in more data visualizations. We think there's so much potential. It's such a fantastic data set that's going to be in here. And we're really excited to work on some more visualizations to show some of these trends over time and show the great progress that campuses have already been making. And then the last piece that we want to work on in the future is we want to add the nitrogen footprint. So right now we've just got the carbon footprint in this public reporting functionality, and we'll be adding the nitrogen footprint as well. So you can publicly report for nitrogen too. And we also want to make more links to other sustainability platforms so that you can highlight your other sustainability initiatives in your institution report on this page, similar to what we've done with embedding the GRITS dashboard on the institutions page. Also wanted to mention some of the other updates that we're going to be releasing in February. So in addition to the public reporting module, we've got our usual SIMAP updates. We'll be releasing a new version of emission factors. Ben Robinson has been hard at work getting all of those updated, and those will be part of this release. So getting to the most current data, one of the biggest changes, or it's a small change, but one of the biggest data sets is the electricity data set. So the new eGrid factors that came out last year, we'll be including those, and otherwise just updates across the board to the most current data sets. We've also got two methods updates. One that I think many of you will be very excited to hear about, and that we're very excited about, is two new commuting modes. So we're adding telecommuting and electric vehicles as commuting modes in SIMAP, and want to give a shout out here to the commuting working group who has been instrumental in collecting these data sets and providing guidance. There'll be more updates to come on commuting in the future to help try to streamline some commuting data entry and commuting data collection and surveys. But for now, what we've done is added telecommuting and electric vehicles. So we'll be including that in our announcement, more information about what goes into those calculations and how to enter that data going forward. Then we're also adding a new wastewater method. One of our fantastic SIMAP interns, Cassidy Yates, with help from Bailey Jones and Megan Wiggin, have been working on updating the wastewater methods in SIMAP to better reflect the types of wastewater treatment available, so to better match up with your local wastewater treatment facility. So the big addition is these two combined treatment methods and the emission factors that go with them. So we'll of course include guidance on that in all of our announcements. So we wanted to have plenty of time for questions at the end. So we're going to summarize now and go into the Q&A portion. So to summarize, we've got this new public reporting module that we're going to be launching next month. We're very excited about it. It's a way that you'll be able to publicly report your emissions data and your goals going forward. Be launching this for signatories in early February and for all other users later in the spring or summer. And stay tuned for new data visualizations, benchmarking, and more. And again, want to thank all of our beta testers. You all were so helpful as we were testing out this functionality and had some really fantastic ideas to improve it. So thanks everyone for your attention. And we'd now like to go into Q&A.
Okay, so while people sort of come up with their own questions, if you have any, we have some from the chat. So the first question we have is, how is this reporting related to the ASHE STARS reporting?
Yeah, great question. So this is something that you can use. It's separate from ASHE STARS reporting, but you can use your results from SIMAP for your part of your ASHE STARS reporting. So SIMAP is a footprint calculation tool to calculate your greenhouse gas footprint and carbon footprint, and that's the data that you'll be publicly reporting on your institution's page. And then you'll also be able to enter that carbon footprint result in your ASHE STARS report. So ASHE STARS is much broader in that it captures a broad range of campus activities beyond the footprint results. Jen,
Ellie, if I
anything
can
you want
just-
to add? Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to add on to that to say one of the things that's been on our wish list for a while, and I think it's kind of made its way toward the top along with, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 other priorities, is a report that bundles all of the relevant information that either you're putting into or that comes out of the SIMAP calculation modules, to bundle them and organize them in the same way, like to accord with the STARS credits. So over the next year, by this time next year, our hope is to have the ability to say, all right, I want my SIMAP data formatted according to the relevant ASHE STARS credit, so I can kind of plug it in and I don't have to parse it all separately. So that's, stay tuned, I guess I would say, on that front. We're working and hoping to make that happen soon.
All right. And then the next question is just sort of correct me, Amy, if you already have your answer, but just to double check about dates. So do we have any idea when in February this will be available?
We have some tentative dates looking at the second week of February. We haven't locked a date in just yet, but we're aiming for and planning for the second week of February. And there'll be a newsletter that goes out. So we'll have a newsletter that goes out to announce this. Second Nature, I think we'll also have an announcement as well. So you'll see it a few different places when it comes out. But the second week of February is what we are aiming for and planning on.
Right. Okay, our next question. Is the metric unit data input template ready for using in SIMAP?
Sorry, would you mind repeating that one again, Shana?
Yeah, is the metric unit data input template ready for using in SIMAP?
So I think that's about the broader data collection template for users that use the metric system. So we do not have that ready just yet. That is on the wish list, and hopefully we'll have that one ready later this year. And that will be a template, a data collection template for all of your SIMAP data that you'd be able to import to the footprinting module. And it would give you some control over what units you enter your data into that calculation template.
Right. Okay, next question. If we have a goal to source 50% of our electricity from renewable sources, does the public-facing report have the capability to communicate progress of this goal?
So what it would definitely communicate is where you could enter your goal, first of all. So you'd be able to display that goal, enter it on the goals tab and have it display on your institution report. What would be tracked is any reductions in emissions, so that would be visible. One thing we do not have yet that we want to add in as far as visualizations is the ability to layer on the goal over your actual emissions data, so tracking the goal versus emissions data. So that's not in there yet. That's on the future list of visualizations that we'd like to add.
Okay, and then we have a lot of questions sort of about the relationship between the Second Nature reporting platform and the new SIMAP reporting platform. So just to clarify, yes, the new Second Nature reporting, and Steve, please jump in if I'm incorrect, but all of the new reporting that you'll do for Second Nature will no longer be on our old reporting platform. We've shut that down. It should not be accessible anymore. So exclusively, you'll be using the SIMAP reporting platform now. And in addition to that, if you've updated the reporting platform previously, but you haven't used it in a couple of years or anything like that, we're transferring all of the data from the old reporting platform to the SIMAP reporting platform. So all of your historic data will be moved over. It should be moved over. But again, when we give ILs the permission and the account to log into the new SIMAP reporting platform, we just want you to double check that the data and the goals are all correct, and then you can publish it so everyone can see it publicly. Yeah, so if anyone has any other questions about that, please feel free to message again, but that's kind of the overall view of that.
Yeah, that's good. I'd just like to
have
add a little bit to that and address some specific questions that were asked. So yes, right now we've taken away the login to be able to add or edit data in the Second Nature reporting platform. However, we haven't finalized the migration of the data, moving it over. So if you have data and you want, I guess if you're manually adding data anyways, it's up to you. I can give you the login if you're able to do it, within the next couple of days. You could put it in Second Nature and we'll move it over to SIMAP, or you can just update manually in the SIMAP reporting module those missing years. So just contact me directly on your preference there. And then John, your question about having more historic data in the Second Nature reporting platform than you have in SIMAP. I have to be honest, we hadn't really considered that. We just determined that we don't want to move data from the Second Nature reporting platform to SIMAP if you are a SIMAP subscriber, just because there's a little bit of concern of overwriting. But you do raise a good point. We are archiving the data in the Second Nature reporting platform, so we will have it. And we have been discussing ways of having larger data imports into SIMAP. So we will address that one. And then I guess the final question there was about what's happening with the Second Nature reporting platform. Again, we're archiving the data, and eventually it will be sunset. I mean, you can still go there now. The login is taken away. However, I can provide you with the link to log into your account if you'd like it.
All right. So the next question is, are there efforts to have SIMAP and the Climate Registry's CRIS system talk to each other? And can you share what the differences are between CRIS and SIMAP? Why would campuses use SIMAP versus CRIS?
Allie, do you want me to start on this one?
Go for it.
Okay. So they do not currently talk to each other, and there aren't currently efforts underway to have them do so. We have in the past, although it's now been quite some time, done a work to sit down with them and compare emissions factors and process. I mean, both tools rely on the greenhouse gas protocol standards, and they pull from the same body of default emissions factors very largely. So your results are likely to be very similar, especially on the scope 1 and scope 2 side for whichever tool you use. And I guess if there was enough demand from users, we could definitely kind of revisit the question of partnership or alignment between them. In general, I mean, I think there's lots of great tools out there, and with SIMAP, our hope is to be, really geared toward higher ed, and a place where we have an aggregated higher ed data set that we can all benefit from. So that's kind of the value we're looking to bring. And also, of course, the kind of combined carbon and nitrogen footprint, because nitrogen pollution also something that our institutions all very much need to address. But, certainly Chris is a great tool too. And there's no reason why you couldn't use the public reporting platform for your second nature commitment. Just put your results in that you get using the climate registry tool. Would be totally appropriate.
Thanks, Jen. And then we have a couple questions sort of about clarifying the commuting, the new commuting identifier on SIMAP. So are hybrids included in electric vehicles, and then hybrid electric also? Will that be included, Allie?
It's not directly included. It can be included in your calculations. The way this calculation is set up is it's looking at the electricity usage required to power vehicles. So if you knew the electricity component from a hybrid electric vehicle, then it could be entered there. Really, we wanted the functionality right now, what it focuses on is converting miles driven into kilowatt hours and then pulls your electricity emissions factor. So that could be, we're working on a broader commuting update actually, where we'll be adding in even more modes in the future and adding in right now, what we have in SIMAP will be considered the comprehensive method with the modal split, but we'll be adding in a basic mode that requires less data entry for schools that might not have survey results and want to get a first rough estimate. So there's definitely more to come on commuting. The commuting working group has been in discussions about the best way to report this data, collect this data, and they've come up with some really great guidance that we are now working on implementing. So more to come soon on commuting as well.
Awesome. And then sort of along the same lines, how will we integrate purchase power from green sources?
Is it for purchased electricity or for EVs in general?
I don't know. So Charles, if you want to expand on the question, yeah, it just says how will we integrate purchase power from green sources?
Well, we've estimated we can reduce our utility or the footprint from scope 2 by 35% over the next 10 years if we purchase the power from green sources. So if we go to our utilities and say we're willing to pay a premium and you're going to source us from a green source, we can reduce, well, we could probably afford 3.5% per year over 10 years. 35% is probably all we're going to get. After that, the other kinds of things like insulation, better glazing, building modifications, better metering of buildings individually, those kinds of things, and maybe solar power in Arizona one day. We can hope for that. But right now rates are cheaper, so they won't invest in solar right now. So that's why our approach is going to be, I hope, the reduction by allocating more money to the utility bill, but to get it from green sources.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying. So that sounds like it'd be your scope 2 purchased electricity entry, and you would want to use the market-based approach for scope 2 so that you can enter those market transactions. So purchases like renewable energy credits. I was asking because we were just talking yesterday about if some organizations are starting to consider purchasing RECs for electric vehicles or telecommuting. And so I was wondering if you were going in that direction because it's technically a scope 3 source. So we've been talking about that and considering that. But yes, for your purposes, you'd want to enter that in your scope 2, use the market-based approach and enter your green purchases there.
Okay, we're not buying RECs. That's an easy way out. This is actually giving utilities additional resources to do green things.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, it'd be the same place to enter the data. Actually, you would just indicate what type of a purchase it is in that data entry.
Awesome. Well, thank you both, and thank you, Charles, for clarifying. So we have a couple more questions. Hopefully we can get to them before time is out. So is there a GHG peer review working group? If not, would Second Nature and or UNH help start one?
I can take that one. So Brandon, right now, what we do have, and I owe an update on where it stands, but During the October Climate Action Pursuit, we had a session that was focused on carbon neutrality claims and verification. So I think this relates to your question. So there was that session was began because there was a healthy discussion happening on the ASHE, what was that, the ASHE hub? I can't remember what it's called, just around that issue. And then of course it comes into all kinds of greenhouse gas accounting topics. So the output from the conversation in October, we're doing a survey that's going to be spread widely, as well as all the notes and recordings from that session. So just kind of a recap of where the conversation has been. So kind of to shorten up this lengthy dialogue I'm having is, yes, something is coming. We're working towards it. And we're going to probably incorporate another session here in April at the Climate Leadership Summit, which is virtual again.
All right, awesome. Okay, so before our last question, I just want to say, Tara, good point about the asterisk for the skewed pandemic emissions. So we will definitely make note of that and look into it. And same thing with Rebecca, with your comment about the showing emissions factor for CO2. We'll definitely look at that as well. Jen said that's something that we're thinking about. So for our last question, I'm curious how this may affect the cost for institutions. So I'm not sure, are you curious if access to SIMAP will? Yeah.
I'll try to address that one. So right now, so the public reporting module is free for climate leadership commitment signatories. And then SIMAP, so the footprinting module, signatories that are in good standing with their dues receive a 40% discount for the SIMAP footprinting tool. So if you have the footprinting tool as a signatory, you can publicly report. So I don't know if that clarifies, but basically right now, at the moment, only signatories are publicly reporting and it's free. Eventually this year, SIMAP will release a paid for service for anyone else to publicly report their data. And Jen and Ali, if I missed anything there or misrepresented, please clarify.
That is all great. Thank you for explaining that. I did want to follow up quickly on that point about being able to tell a little bit of the story, the narrative around your results. So especially for the last few years that have been very unusual in every way, and greenhouse gas emissions is one of those ways. So you can include that story in your description on your institution report page. There's that place to enter text where you can include some of that information, some of that storytelling, the information behind the numbers, really. So what's driving the numbers? So that's the place that's intended to have some of that storytelling and that narrative.
Awesome. So that's all of our questions. If anyone else has anything else to ask, feel free to contact any one of us and we will get back to you. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Have
everyone.
a great weekend. Be well. Thanks for tuning in.